In the heart of a gleaming marble mansion stood two identical teenage boys, Brandon and Bryce Lancaster. Born into billions, their every whim was met without delay. But when it came to food, they were impossibly hard to please. "Too salty," Bryce said with a wrinkle of his nose. "Too bland," Brandon added, shoving his gold-plated fork aside. Maids came and went, each one fired within days of being unable to satisfy their princely palates. Chefs from Paris, Tokyo, and Rome were flown in, only to be dismissed with silent glares or arrogant insults. "They're impossible," one chef muttered as he rolled his luggage out the front door. Their father, Arthur Lancaster, the empire's iron-fisted billionaire, watched with both amusement and frustration. "If they don't learn to value simplicity," he said to his assistant, "they'll grow up rotten." But one day, someone entirely different stepped through the staff entrance. Her name was Amira. Barefoot, shy, and dressed in faded clothes. She wasn't a chef. She wasn't even hired to cook. She'd only come to clean the floors. Her hands were rough, and her resume was non-existent. Yet when the head chef fell ill one morning, and the other maids refused to try again, Amira volunteered. "I can make something," she said softly. Laughter echoed in the kitchen. "You," one of the staff snorted. "They'll spit it out and fire you on the spot." But Amira didn't flinch. She quietly walked to the pantry, took a few humble ingredients, and began cooking something from her childhood. Aroma filled the air. Sweet, rich, and oddly comforting. She didn't know it yet, but destiny had just turned the stove on. The aroma drifted like a gentle memory through the marble corridors. Cinnamon, cardamom, and something else. Something nostalgic. Even the gardeners outside paused, sniffing the air. In the grand dining hall, Brandon and Bryce lounged with boredom written on their faces. The table was set with gold-rimmed plates, crystal glasses, and gleaming silverware, but they had no appetite. Until the maid named Amira entered, carrying two modest bowls. "What is that?" Bryce asked, scrunching his nose. "It smells different," Brandon added, sitting up slightly. Amira placed the bowls down with trembling hands. "It's just spiced lentils and rice. My mother used to make it when we had nothing." Bryce stared. "Lentils? We're not beggars." Brandon picked up a spoon anyway. "Let me just taste it. It smells weirdly good." One bite. Silence. Then another bite. And another. Within minutes, both twins were eating like they hadn't had food in days. No sneers. No complaints. Just chewing. Slowly. Thoughtfully. Amira stood frozen, unsure what would happen next. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" Bryce finally asked, avoiding eye contact. "My village," she whispered. "Before the floods." Brandon looked at her for the first time, not like a servant, but like a person. "This doesn't taste like rich food. It tastes like home." The head butler stood at the door, dumbfounded. "They've never finished a meal. Ever," added a maid from behind him. Suddenly, Bryce pointed his spoon at her. "You're cooking dinner too?" Brandon nodded. "And breakfast?" The other maids gasped. Some scoffed. Others whispered angrily. A poor maid. Getting praise? This was not how the Lancaster house worked. But the twins had spoken. And Amira's quiet revolution had just begun. The next morning, tension hung thick in the Lancaster mansion's air. In the kitchen, Amira silently chopped onions while eyes burned into her back, more painful than any blade. "She thinks she's better than us now," hissed Clarissa, the head maid, slamming a pot harder than necessary. "Just because the boys liked her food once?" murmured another. "Luck, that's all it was." But luck doesn't make someone get up at 4 a.m. to grind fresh spices by hand. It doesn't carry aching feet through marble floors to serve with humility. And it certainly doesn't put forgotten flavors into the mouths of boys who've tasted everything. Still, resentment grew. Clarissa gathered the others. "We've served this house for years. Then she shows up with her poor girl stew and they're licking their bowls." They all nodded. "She's not one of us. And she's not staying long." Meanwhile, Amira stood in the pantry, whispering over a tattered recipe card tucked into her apron. Her mother's handwriting, fading, but alive. "Make them feel seen," her mother had once said. "Food is how we speak without words." By evening, Bryce stormed into the kitchen. "Where's Amira? I said I want her food." Clarissa stepped forward. "She's unavailable. She quit," lied another maid. Brandon followed in, face darkening. "She what?" Amira, hearing the chaos, entered quietly from the garden entrance. "I didn't quit, sir. She's lying, Clarissa snapped. She's trying to manipulate you both. Bryce's gaze froze on her. You think we can't tell the difference between food made with care and food made with contempt? Clarissa turned pale. Brandon faced Amira. You're not going anywhere. And just like that, a poor girl had broken the cast of silence. But the war had only begun. Amira stood, trembling but upright, as the rest of the staff exchanged nervous glances. The truth was out. The twins had chosen her, not just her food, but something deeper. Something none of them understood yet. Brandon motioned toward the stove. Can you make it again? What you made yesterday? Amira gave a small nod. Yes, sir. Bryce cut in, gentler this time. Call us Bryce and Brandon. No need for, sir. Those words changed something in the air. The hierarchy cracked. Amira pulled her scarf tighter around her head and set to work, her hands moving with practiced grace. This time, she added a little cardamom, just like her grandmother used to in their tiny Karachi kitchen. A hint of memory, a dash of defiance. As the aroma filled the space, the tension among the maids grew unbearable. She's just showing off now, one muttered, but secretly, they watched. They saw how the boys sat at the kitchen counter for the first time waiting. Not in a dining hall surrounded by silver and marble, but in the heart of the home, where steam curled and spices whispered. When Amira served the dish chickpea curry with basmati rice and freshly baked flatbread, Brandon took one bite and looked at his brother. You taste that? Bryce nodded slowly. Warmth, like something we forgot we needed. Even the butler, Mr. Graves, peeked in from the hallway and cleared his throat. Miss Amira, that smell is nostalgic. Clarissa's face twitched. Her grip on the dish rag turned white. Amira didn't gloat. She bowed slightly and stepped back. She had let the food speak, not of money. Not of status. But of dignity. And in that kitchen, something sacred stirred again. By the next morning, Amira's name was being whispered behind every silk curtain and golden corridor of the mansion. The maids who once rolled their eyes at her now huddled in corners, watching her every move. Some in awe, others in quiet envy. Clarissa stormed into the laundry room, slamming her tray down. She cooked one meal. One. And suddenly she's Julia Child? She's got them eating out of her hands, another maid mumbled. Clarissa's eyes narrowed. Not for long. Meanwhile, Amira moved silently through the halls, ignoring the stares. She wasn't here to compete. She was here to work, to send money back home to her mother who was battling illness in Pakistan. Every dish she made carried that burden and that love. In the West Wing, Brandon and Bryce were in deep conversation with their grandmother, Eleanor Harrington, the true matriarch of the empire. She's different, Brandon said carefully. She cooks with soul. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. Soul doesn't run companies. Bryce leaned forward. But maybe it nourishes the people who do. Eleanor's eyes twinkled with something unreadable. She'd seen thousands of servants come and go, but never had her grandsons mentioned one by name. Not until now. That afternoon, the head chef, furious about being bypassed, stormed into the staff hall. Who does she think she is? Cooking without permission? Clarissa grinned. Exactly what I said. But Eleanor's sudden entrance silenced them all. I'll decide who cooks in my house, she said crisply. Bring me this, Amira. A hush fell. Clarissa's smile died. In the quiet that followed, Amira entered, her hands still dusted with flour. Eleanor looked her up and down. So, you're the poor maid who taught my grandsons to feel. And the game had just changed. Amira stood before Eleanor Harrington like a lamb before a lioness. The grand hall was silent, so silent you could hear the ticking of the antique grandfather clock. Clarissa leaned against the doorway, smirking, certain Amira was about to be humiliated and sent packing. Eleanor circled her slowly. You're not classically trained, she said. No, ma'am, Amira answered softly. You didn't attend culinary school? No, ma'am. You didn't even ask permission before cooking? Amira hesitated. They were hungry. I didn't think permission mattered more than kindness. That answer caused a pause. A few of the senior staff raised their eyebrows. No one ever spoke to Eleanor like that. But instead of rage, Eleanor gave a dry chuckle. Interesting, she motioned to a butler. Prepare the chef's kitchen. Tonight, you'll cook for me. One dish. Just one. If it's as miraculous as the boys say, you'll stay. If not, she leaned in. You're gone. Yes, ma'am. As Amira walked away, Clarissa hissed under her breath, hope you burn it. That evening, the kitchen buzzed with tension. Eleanor sat at the chef's table, her silver hair glowing under the warm lights. All eyes were on Amira as she carefully plated her dish, a humble but fragrant chicken biryani, layered with spices passed down from her grandmother. The aroma filled the kitchen, grounding everyone in memories they didn't know they had. Eleanor took one bite. Silence. Then another. And finally, she set her fork down. "I haven't tasted anything like this since I was a girl in Lahore," she whispered, eyes distant. The room was stunned. Clarissa paled. Eleanor stood, facing Amira. "You passed my test. From now on, you're head of personal meals for my grandsons and me." The kitchen erupted. And Amira? She just smiled quietly. The next morning, the entire estate buzzed with whispers. A poor maid had just leapfrogged over trained chefs and seasoned staff. Clarissa sulked in a corner while the twins practically danced into the breakfast hall, giddy to see what Amira would prepare next. But it wasn't just the taste of her food that stirred curiosity. It was the feeling it left behind. Tristan looked at her as she folded fresh parathas. "Why does your food feel like home?" Amira paused for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Because it is made with memory, not just recipe." Jasper, intrigued, leaned forward. "What kind of memory?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she plated their meal and set it before them with care. Then she quietly said, "When I was little, my mother ran a food cart. We couldn't afford much, but she told me, if you cook with love, even the poorest ingredients will make someone feel rich." The twins went silent. It wasn't just about flavor anymore, it was about heart. Meanwhile, Eleanor stood in the background, unnoticed, listening. Her expression softened. She, too, had known hardship in her youth before marrying into wealth. Something in Amira's words dug into old, hidden chambers of her heart. Later that day, Eleanor invited Amira to walk with her in the garden. "You remind me of someone," she said. "Someone who never forgot where she came from, no matter how far she climbed." Amira looked down, a little shy. "Most people cook to impress. You cook to connect." That sentence stayed with Amira for days. That evening, a new rule was posted in the estate. Only dishes prepared or approved by Amira shall be served to the young masters. Clarissa tore it down in secret fury. But it was too late. The household had already chosen its new heart. Days passed, and Amira's place in the mansion grew stronger. The twins, Tristan and Jasper, couldn't get enough of her food and stories. They began sneaking into the kitchen after school, just to watch her cook and ask questions. One afternoon, as Amira chopped vegetables, Jasper suddenly blurted out, "Why do the other maids hate you?" Amira stopped, her knife hovering. "Because sometimes, people fear what they don't understand, and I'm different." Tristan frowned. "That's stupid. We like you because you're real. Not fake like them." The twins' loyalty sparked whispers among the staff, turning many against Amira's rivals. Clarissa's cold glares became sharper, and Eleanor's quiet support was the only shield Amira had. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Amira found Eleanor waiting by the kitchen door. "Let's talk," Eleanor said softly, leading her to the garden. "I know it hasn't been easy," Eleanor began, "but you're stronger than you think. The twins have chosen you not just for your cooking, but because they see the truth." Amira looked up, surprised. "Why are you helping me?" Eleanor smiled sadly. "Because I've been where you are, a stranger in this world, judged before being understood. You remind me of my younger self." That moment changed everything. Amira felt hope, but also responsibility. The next day, the mansion staff gathered in the main hall. Eleanor stood beside Amira and addressed the crowd. "From today, we work as one family. Amira's place here is earned by love and respect, not by wealth or status." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Even Clarissa hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. The battle lines blurred, and slowly, peace began to settle. But beneath it all, a secret was stirring. One that could change everything for Amira, the twins, and the mansion forever. Life in the mansion was beginning to feel more peaceful. Amira's food continued to win hearts, and the staff's cold hostility softened, thanks to Eleanor's unexpected support. The twins were happier than ever, laughing freely and sharing secrets with Amira. Yet, beneath the calm, a hidden storm was brewing. One evening, as Amira cleaned the kitchen late, she stumbled upon an old, dusty box tucked away in the pantry corner. Curiosity pulled her closer. Inside, she found letters, photographs, and documents tied with a faded red ribbon. Her hands trembled as she unfolded one letter. It revealed a secret about the mansion's family, a secret kept from everyone, even the twins. The letters spoke of betrayal, lost fortune, and a hidden heir that no one knew existed. Amira's heart pounded. Could this secret change everything? Would the twins be safe if this truth came to light? Or would it tear the family apart? She debated sharing the discovery with Daniel, but fear held her back. What if this knowledge made her a target again? What if the family turned against her once more? Meanwhile, the twins' curiosity grew. They noticed Amira's distant gaze and her sudden quietness. One afternoon, Tristan caught her staring at the box in the pantry. "Amira, what is it?" he asked softly. She hesitated but smiled. "Just old memories." The twins exchanged glances, sensing there was more. Across the mansion, Clarissa's cold eyes watched Amira's every move. Rumors whispered through the staff, and tension rose like a storm ready to burst. Amira knew she had to be careful. The secret she uncovered could either protect the family or destroy everything she had fought for. The next day, Daniel called for a family meeting. Something important was about to unfold, and Amira braced herself for the storm ahead. The family meeting was called in the grand living room, where sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long shadows. Daniel stood at the center, flanked by the twins, Eleanor and Amira, whose heart thumped with anticipation and dread. Daniel cleared his throat. "There's something I need to share with all of you." Amira's breath caught. Could this be the moment the secret came to light? He held up the old letter Amira had found, now in his hand. "These documents reveal a truth hidden for years. One that involves our family's history, our fortune, and what we thought we knew about our past." The room fell silent. Tristan and Alara looked at each other, eyes wide. Eleanor's face paled, while Clarissa, sitting quietly at the side, clenched her jaw. Daniel continued, "This secret could change everything, but it also gives us a chance to rebuild, to be honest with each other." Amira finally spoke, voice steady but soft. "I found these letters. I didn't want to hide anything from you." Daniel gave her a grateful look. "Thank you for your courage, Amira. You've been more than a maid. Your family." The twins beamed. "We always knew," Alara said, reaching for Amira's hand. The storm of fear and suspicion began to dissolve, replaced by hope and unity. Clarissa, seeing the strength in their bond, stood and nodded. "I was wrong to judge you, Amira. I'm sorry." Tears glistened in Amira's eyes as forgiveness bloomed. From that day forward, the mansion wasn't just a house. It was a home where secrets no longer ruled, and love could grow freely. Amira's humble cooking was no longer just accepted, it was celebrated. The twins, Daniel and Eleanor, stood united with her, stronger than ever. Together, they faced the future, ready for whatever came next.